Good Friday afternoon, everybody. Rick Floor from Adobe here, and we're here with our Friday Lightroom lunch. And today's topic is going to be the one-click portrait retouch. I'm very excited to present this to you, and I wanted to apologize for those of you who tuned in last week for the live video and then found the video pulled down. But what happened was I've got this little nifty avatar down in the left-hand corner of the screen over here. See me down here? Yeah. And when I did the video last week, I had put myself on the right-hand side of the screen like you see now, and I ended up covering up the entire tool set that I was trying to show you. So this video is not so much a redo as a learning experience improvement, and we'll see how it goes today. But the lesson's going to be a little bit different. And just for those of you who watched the video last week and tuned in this week, I didn't want to have you see the exact same images. We'll move me back over to the left-hand side where I'm out of the way from where all the action is going to take place today. So, Adobe released Lightroom 12.0, Lightroom Classic 12.0, Lightroom Desktop 6.0, and Camera Raw 15.0 last Tuesday at our Adobe Max event. Now, big update. There's a lot of cool features, and if you watched last Friday's video, you'll have seen the new Content Aware Remove tool and the amazing things that you can do now inside of Lightroom with Content Aware technology, which you've probably been familiar with from using Photoshop over the years. So that was last week. This week, we're going to show you something that was inspired by our Max booth. I work with a couple of cool guys, Corey Schubert and Rick Spalding. And they took over. One of my long-standing traditions was going to Max and running a social media headshot booth. And this year they took up the mantle and took over the project for me. Now, in years past, we would shoot for 3 days at Adobe Max, and then we would retouch for 2 weeks afterwards and then deliver the images. The new technology that comes in Lightroom Classic today allows you to do that retouch with one click. The same thing that took me 2 or 3 minutes an image times 580 images now is a one-click operation, and people were literally walking out of the booth with their retouched photos on their phones because it was that fast. Take the photo, retouch it, deliver it via email, and 3 minutes from the time you sat down on the stool till the time you were walking away with your new picture, ready to post on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you wished it to be. So this presentation today is kind of a deconstruction of what Rick and Corey did live and what's included with the Adobe product now. I've got Adobe Lightroom Classic version 12.0.1 on the screen right now. And 12.0.1 was released at 4 o'clock this morning. So if I seem a little rummy or tired, it's because I've already been going 8 or 9 hours at the time of this video recording. And it's getting a little bit closer to quitting time for me. So we released an update today. That update is primarily a Ventura OS for Mac users, compatibility update, as well as a few key bug fixes for some bugs that reared their heads up in the first 10 days of the release. So if you're a Mac user in particular and you're going to put the Ventura OS on your system, I highly recommend getting the update today. If you are not, there's a couple of bugs for the Windows users in there that I think it's worth doing the update. Go out to your Creative Cloud app, hit Command-Option-R or Control-Alt-R. It will refresh and you can get the update. So, on to the presentation now. We've taken care of all of the business. So for Friday, I thought I would do a one-click retouch, and this is a picture of my beautiful daughter, Whitney. She took a set of photos with me, and if I go to grid view here, you can see that there's a lot of photos here in various different outfits. And what this was originally was it was for a white balance classroom test so that I would have images that I could use in a classroom setting to teach people and test their skills in applying white balances. That's why she's wearing blue in some, only flesh tone in others, red in some, white in some, and black in some. And you can see that the camera's automatic white balance drifted all over the place. I also use this set for a fast reject pick culling workshop that I do, and that workshop allows you to go through and pick and reject photos very quickly. So there are some photos in here of Whitney that are obvious throwaways where she was instructed to close her eyes or make a goofy face or do something of that nature. But we're going to concentrate on the whole set as if it were a complete portrait shoot that you had done where you wanted every photo in the shot retouched. So we're going to go to the Develop module, and I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, we've got these new masking tools over here. And if I click the masking icon, you can see that there's some masks already created on this image, and I'm going to reset this image so that it doesn't have any masks. You can see there's a new section down here called People, where it finds Whitney, and that's pretty cool. There's also a new object selection, and there's also a new background mask too. That object selection and background mask work great for non-portrait images, but today we're concentrating on the items in People. So what we had at Max, I'm going to zoom in on Whitney here. I'm going to close out this Max panel and get that mask panel off the screen here, is we had a retouching preset that we had created on site at Max that allowed us to do a one-button click and people were on their way. And that looks something like this. We called it Max Magic Portrait Retouch, and you can see just by mousing over it, it does the retouch. If I go back to reset image, there's the image as it came in out of camera, and here is the retouch setting. And when I click that, what happens is the AI goes out and it finds various pieces of Whitney's face, and it allows me to apply settings to each one of those. And the beauty of it is because it is AI, I can actually retouch this image and then use the work that I've done here to retouch another image. I'll reset this image back. So what I've got is the ability to say, if I've got a person with teeth in every photo, I can retouch those teeth all in one fell swoop, and it's not going to rely on me to brush over the teeth with the brush tool. It's not going to rely on me to do some kind of selection. The AI is going to pick the teeth out, and it's going to ignore those that don't have teeth. You'll find there are some pictures here where Whitney smiles and where she doesn't smile, or where her eyes may be shut or they may be open. And the ability for the AI to go through and do all of that heavy lifting for me lets me build a preset which is appropriate to my own editing style, but can be applied to dozens of images at once. And we'll show you how that works here. So deconstructing a preset, this is a set of photos that was put together, and I'm going to pick a good image to do my preset from because I don't want to be working on an image that's got, say, missing eyes or a goofy mouth or something like that. I want to work on a standard image, which is why I've chosen image number 3 here. We're going to make sure that we're in the Develop module, and we're going to reset that image. And I'm just going to hide this presets panel for now because we don't really need it until later. So what I'm looking for, we'll zoom out so you can see the whole effect, is I'm looking to create an image preset that does all of the edits I would normally do, but does them automatically. And a couple of things I always do to my images is I always white balance my images, and I always pick a color profile. Now, I could go as shot, or I could choose something like flash. Flash, this was shot in a studio strobe, so flash would be totally appropriate, and it gives her skin a nice golden glow. I'm going to stick with the Adobe Portrait profile for right now. Typically, I would use a custom profile that I had created using a Macbeth color chart and the Adobe DNG converter or profiling tool. But not everyone does that, so I want to do something that's within the reach of everybody on the class today. So we'll set the portrait, we'll set flash. There are a few other things I like to set as well. One thing I like to set is I like to remove chromatic aberration and set the profile corrections within the lens corrections panel. That's something I pretty much always do, so I want to make sure I've done those things. I don't need to do anything in transform, effects, or calibration. I might decide that I want to set my standard sharpening settings, which I currently have set to 40, and luminance noise will take up to, say, 4. This was a photo. If I take the I key and bring it over and show you the camera settings, it was shot at ISO 100, so it's going to be a very noise-free image. We've already got the lens correction taken care of, so that looks pretty good. Everything is done as far as the basic edits that I would normally want to do on this photo. Now I want to do the specific edits to the parts of the portrait. So we're going to come over here and grab the mask tool again, and you'll watch that it spins and it finds people. And when it finds a person, it shows you a little thumbnail of their face. And when you click on that thumbnail, some other magic happens. It detects all of the features of the person that are available. And you'll see that there are the entire person, which is something I don't need for this demo, but there's face skin and body skin. I have the ability to control those things separately. And I might want to retouch those separately. I might not want to do as smooth a skin retouch on the face as I would on a neck or arms, but you certainly could. You can select the eyebrows. Whitney's eyebrows don't need a lot of work, so I won't be selecting that. But you can also select eye sclera. So let's start clicking these. Eye sclera would be the whites of the eyes. And sclera is a term that translates well to a lot of other languages. A lot of people have asked, why didn't you just say whites of their eyes? Idiomatic expressions in other languages don't often, one, translate well, or two, fit nicely within the interface. So sclera was chosen as the term. Iris and pupil, that's the colored part of the eye and the dark part of the eye. Lips, we'll grab the lips. Teeth, and hair. So it's allowing me to select each one of these as an individual mask, and I can build those all out as 7 separate masks that I might want to use for retouching. And the only thing I've omitted here is the eyebrows. So I'm going to say create those masks. The mask panel will open and it will show me all those masks here. Now my mask panel is docked. You could have yours off to the side like this where you could see it all. Because we're working on a portrait image and we've got room in the interface, I think I'll leave it here. So we can start working on things. One of the things Lightroom ships with is it ships with some local adjustment presets. So when I select face, I can come into this local adjustment preset and I can choose Skin Softening Light, which was something we put in after the texture slider came in. Back in the older days of Lightroom, you might have used Soften Skin. And when we do that, it tends to be overkill. It does a lot of different things. And I'm going to turn off those pins so that we don't have to worry about those right now. So I've chosen to use Soften Skin. That feels a little heavy in the retouch department. And if I zoom in, you can see that her skin looks really kind of plasticky. So I'm going to back that off to Soften Skin Light. And I get a little bit of that texture back, and that's nice. And I'm going to use Soften Skin Light as well on the non-facial skin. So we've retouched the skin now. We're going to grab this mask right here. If I hover over the mask, you'll see that the mask overlay shows me the eye sclera. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to brighten the whites just a little bit, plus 20. I'm sorry, I wheeled my mouse while I was over the arrow, and the mouse will actually move if you wheel the mouse around. I'm using a Windows PC today. On a Mac, I think you have to do some work to get that. And I want to take some saturation out. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the whites of the eyes whiter. And if I want to toggle any of these on and off, I can do that by clicking the eyeball icon in the mask. And you can watch just the whites of the eyes as I click them on and off and see that it's a very subtle adjustment, but it will take out those reds and make those eyes pop. Moving up to mask 4, you'll see that's iris and pupil. Adobe has already included an iris enhance preset for you here. I would recommend you use that. Click the iris enhance, and if you want to give it just a little bit of oomph, you can. I'll just crank it up so you can see what's going on there. But really, about 0.4 is where you want it to be. You just want to give those eyes a little bit more life. That's what we're after here. Moving up to mask 5, you have person 1's lips. Lips I tend to apply a little bit of blacks to, just to darken them down. It separates them from the facial skin nicely. And if you want to simulate makeup, you can actually increase the saturation a little bit. And you can actually use the hue slider to change the colors if you wanted to do that. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to double click and send it back. And I'm going to take that saturation back down to a smaller amount because this is a fresh face portrait. There isn't makeup involved. So I'll come back out here. We'll grab mask number 6, which is going to be the teeth. And this is the place where people can go overboard. I see this a lot. Lightroom ships with a teeth whitening preset. And if I click that, I get some really white teeth. And I'm going to leave them white for right now because I want to show you what you can do with it. When they're this white, what I like to do is I like to toggle it on and off and say, okay, is that too much? And to me, it feels like it is. So if I click that mask, one of the things I can do is I can dial it back a little bit. And that's something I want to think about doing here, is dialing it back a little bit. And I can do that a couple of different ways. I can do that by working with the mask itself, or I can do that by using the amount slider and dialing it back. If I pull it back, you see, and now it's only given 27% of the adjustment. Now it's at 46. Now it's at 77, 77, maybe 70 feels about right. And that looks pretty good. So now we've got the teeth adjusted like we want them. Last thing to go is the hair. I've got a very dark-haired individual on a very dark background, and I haven't put a rim light on them, so they're going to really blend in. So we're going to amp this hair up with a little bit of exposure and a little bit of shadow increase just to kind of pull them off the background and maybe pull the blacks back down just a touch. And that is in essence our preset. We've come through and we've segmented the entire area that we're going to retouch and retouched each one of those differently. So now that I'm done with that, I can click my mask and I've got all of the adjustments I want. I've assigned a color profile, a white balance. I've done my lens corrections, my noise, and my sharpening, and now I'm ready, having done the masking, to create a preset. So what I can do is I can come over here and click plus and say create preset, and I can give that preset, Facebook Live Retouch, and we'll just call it that. And we're going to check all of the boxes and we're going to create, and it's going to go into my Magic Portrait Retouch group, and there it is right there. It should be basically the same as what I've already created, but it's also going to let me show you the example of creating a preset. So that's how you do it for one image. And if I toggle you before and after, show you reset of the image versus the Facebook Live retouch that we did, you can see all of those edits have taken place. This is where the magic occurs. If I go to the next image in my film strip, which is one of Whitney being silly, you'll notice there's no teeth. Her body position is different. Her eyes are not in the same place. Her lips are not in the same place, but I can still apply that Facebook Live Retouch preset. I'll get a warning saying, hey, it's going to take us about 3 seconds to chunk through here and do this, but it's done the retouch. And if we come in here and we look at this both as a before and after, you can see the retouch has been done. The skin is smoothed, the eyes are popped, and because there were no teeth found, there's no adjustment to be made there. So that helps me get a lot of work done very quickly. So I built a preset that retouched a face, and now I've retouched a second face with it. Let's take it to the next level. We're going to go back to grid, and I've got a whole bunch of faces selected here. Some are darker, some are lighter. They're all different white balances. I can grab this entire pile now by selecting the first one and hitting Command or Control A. And over here in the Quick Develop panel, our buddy the Quick Develop panel, I can apply a preset. And we'll apply the Magic Portrait Retouch or the Facebook Live, either one, and it will update for those 47 images. Now it's going to give me a timer and say, Rick, this is going to take 3 minutes to do, but it's retouching 48 images. When I used to do these retouches for the Adobe Max event, excuse me, for my headshot booth, I would spend about 3 minutes an image retouching. So this is already 47 times faster. If I had 580 images to do, it would probably be 100 times faster for me to do the entire pile. And it's kind of a misnomer for me to say that I'm doing it, because I'm not. I did my work and now Lightroom is doing its work. And what it's doing is it's going in image by image. It's finding the person. Here is the person. It's finding their eyes, it's finding their teeth, it's finding their lips, it's finding their skin, and then it's saying whatever amount you chose to apply to those local adjustment sliders, I'm going to apply that to your image and give you a finished render. And you can see we're already halfway through. And this is really handy for us to have, because we can do batches, we can leave, we can go do other things. We can go change our batteries in our camera, reformat our memory cards, whatever it is that we've got to do. We're not beholden to sitting in front of 47 images and clicking the button, or even worse, 47 images and doing the brush strokes. So that's a huge time saver in my book, and I love that. The other thing about this is if I've got to stop and run and do something, I can hit the stop button, and if I come back and select these images again, it's going to pick up where it left off. And that's a big help too. This is pausable, so you can do something if you need to do it. Now, admittedly, you would have to select the same 47 and run the same routine, but it's going to find out, hey, I've already run this on 34 out of the 47. I only need to do the last 13. So that helps quite a bit. A little bit about this PC. This is a 6-year-old Windows box that I built myself. And in here, I put in a NVIDIA GTX 970 graphics card with 4 gig of RAM. 6 years ago, it was a pretty nice card. Now it's a pretty slow card. If I was doing this on my brand new Mac Pro M1 with the 32 cores, it would probably go quite a bit faster because most of this masking and develop work leverages the GPU. And if you've got a better graphics card, you're going to end up with a much faster experience on getting things like this done. And we're almost there. We're 97%. There's the last image, and we are done. We just retouched 47 images in one fell swoop. And I can pull up any image, and we can go to develop, and we can see that preview being built, and there is the retouched image right there. Here's the beauty. If we feel like it went overboard, we've also got this preset amount slider here that says, hey, you've applied Magic Portrait Retouch. Here's a slider. Would you like less of that or more of that? And you can go crazy with it. But the thing is even though you've applied this, it's definitely scalable to whatever person you're working with. If they don't need the teeth work, they've been to the dentist, they've had the whitening treatments, all you have to do is click that mask panel, find that teeth mask. I'm guessing it's probably that one right there because there are no teeth in this picture, and dial that particular mask back using the amount slider that's over here and grayed out. If the face softening was too harsh, you can dial it up or down alone, but you've got the ability to dial each individual mask up or down, and you've got the ability to dial the entire preset up or down. You can see that after I've moved off of the preset settings here, that I've actually lost my preset because it no longer matches the preset because I made changes. I can quickly reapply that, and I'm back to where I was with this. Amount slider, take it down to 50, take it up to 100. So if you got somebody with heavy makeup who doesn't need a lot of Lightroom love, you can dial it back to 50. You've got somebody who partied all night and came in pretty rough, you can dial it up to 100. It works great. So let's go back to our grid view and look at these pictures here. If you look at these, and I'm going to make them a little smaller so that they actually, most of them show up here. I've got images that are darker. I'm going to hit Command D to unselect them, and images that are lighter. So as I start to grab these, I might come in here and grab this group that's darker. And this was deliberate when I created the set. I wanted to make it darker, but in grid mode, I can kind of see which ones are the outliers and which ones are the correct exposures. And I can grab that group and I can say, let's take that exposure up about 1 stop. Because I'm in the quick develop panel, it's going to make a relative adjustment to each photo. So if there had been exposure adjustments before, they would all now be increased by 1 stop. Clicking that, I get a 114 images, updated the exposure, the retouching stays intact, everything looks good, and I've got a nice homogeneous set of images that I can use. And the other nice thing about this is I've always got this preset now in my bank. If I want to, I didn't have any image selected, so let's grab, let's get one of the nicer ones here. So here's one with eyes shut and things like that, but it's a nice retouch. We'll go back to develop. I've got this setting here that I want to apply. I can reset the image back to its original. I can apply the Magic Portrait Retouch, or I can mouse off of it and I can see where I'm at with the Magic Portrait Retouch, plus the 1-stop increase that I'd done in the Quick Develop panel. So for a shoot in variable lighting conditions, I'm thinking of weddings where the light changes dramatically. Leveraging the Quick Develop panel along with a Portrait Retouch setting takes you a long way towards getting done what you need to get done in the shortest amount of time possible. Now, the example I've showed here today is basically an example that is one person, one portrait. Very typical. When Rick and Corey were doing their headshot booth out at Max, they were shooting one person at a time, so the same preset works for all. But you can build a preset that works for multiple people as well. You could put 3 people in there and say, I want person 1 to get these settings, person 2 to get these settings. And typically speaking, within the bounds of the arrangement of the scene, Lightroom's going to pick by face location, and it's going to decide who's number 1 and who's number 2 based upon where their face appears in the frame. So as long as you keep that in mind, if you've got a group of bride, groom, parents, and grandparents, and they're all going to stay in the same position, person 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is not going to change that much. But just realize that position in a frame and identification of a person depends on where they are in the frame, not who they are. So if you move grandpa from the middle to the end, he's going to change from person 4 to person 1. So you have to be aware of that. If you're going to build multiple person presets, you need to accommodate that into your thinking. And I could foresee a case where people would want to have many different presets, one for a couple, one for couple, man on the right, woman on the left, and opposite of that. Because you might do things differently depending upon whether the man has facial hair, whether he runs with the stubble look or something like that. So keep these things in mind. But for the basic portrait retouch like we did here today, it turns essentially, I'm going to say 2.5 hours worth of work into 4 minutes. That includes the time for building the preset and the time for applying it to the 48 images. So huge time savings. I'm going to wind up the video right there. That's the basics of how you do the person retouch. And it works the same. You're relying on AI to find a person and find their features, and then you apply the settings that fit your style. Build your preset containing all of the global adjustments that you would normally want to use, things like white balance, things like color profile, things like lens corrections, things like lens corrections, chromatic aberrations, sharpening, noise reduction. Those tend to be the group that I work with. And then I build my preset based upon the individual selections. Sometimes I will select the face skin and the neck skin as a group. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. Because if I wanted to come in here and create a new mask, I could say create a new mask, select people. It's going to go out and find the person. This looks a little different since I have the mask panel undocked, but when I click here, it will detect all of their features. And one of the things that I can do is I can choose to select their face and their body skin. Right now they're separate, but I can say, don't create 2 separate masks, create a single mask. And now I get a mask that contains all of their skin. So if I want to adjust that warmer or cooler or whatever it is I want to do, it's Halloween week. Maybe you want to go here. I don't know. Maybe you want to contrast it up. Maybe we want to hit the old black slider and maybe take that hue to a nice livid green, something like that. We're starting to work. We're getting the She-Hulk look going here, but you can see possibilities for this. And of course, each one of these masks has the ability to refine itself. You can still add to and subtract with any other mask that you would normally use. So I could come in here and say, give me a little color range, and we'll see if we can pick those eyebrows up a little tighter. Oh yes, we did. We got it. So very quickly, there's my She-Hulk preset for the Halloween season. But the masks have all the same capability of the graduated mask and the select sky and select subject that you learned about last year. Those masks can combine with any mask with an add, subtract, or intersect mode. So you have the ability to refine them. If the skin selection leaves a little bit of area around the eyebrow, like we just found, I'll take that off with you can see around the eyebrow. And I also picked up the lips there too. So I might actually want to say, don't do the lips. And to get rid of that, I would say in subtract, select people, and it's going to find the person. And we're going to say this time subtract the lips, create the mask, and now those lips are out of there. And let me turn on the eyeball tool here again. And now we've gotten the skin, we've pulled it tighter to the eyebrows, and we've excluded the lips. And that lets us build a mask that's very cool. So if you wanted to go out and photograph a gang of youngsters and turn them all into the Hulk, you certainly can do that. Check with the comic book manufacturer for the rights before you do. But other than that, that's the demo for today. So I'm going to turn off the masking panel. I want to thank you for joining me for the Friday lunchtime Lightroom lesson. And this one worked out pretty good. We'll see how it looks online. And I'd like to come back here in a week or two and show you some of the advanced masking tools with more of a landscape type of image than a portrait type of image. If you have questions, I would encourage you to ask them on the Facebook page. Twin Cities Lightroom Community is the Facebook page. And I had a great time presenting for you today. I hope you all have a great weekend and a happy Halloween. And we'll see you next time.